Hi everyone, welcome to another My Life in Objects. So for this one, as you can see, and from the title as well, I'm going to be chatting, cogitating and generally pondering on the first three Iron Maiden albums and just talking about, the time when I acquired them. And also I'll bring on some other Iron Maiden related artifacts. I did go through their singles where there's a My Life in Objects where I went through my sort of rather modest collection of 45s and such like, and I'll include a link to that, the one that's relevant. But yeah, first three Iron Maiden albums. So we're talking about Iron Maiden. Here we go. Killers and The Number of the Beast. So let's get it out of the way first. What is my favourite of the first three Iron Maiden albums? It's actually Killers, and we'll talk about that as I go through this. And then I'll bring in some extra timeline appropriate artifacts that are interesting to look at and add to the sort of conversation. So this is obviously the first Iron Maiden album that came out, and I remember seeing this in various record shops. It always looked very impressive in the window, rather like if you, I don't know how many people are at an age when they can remember when there were big sort of album release promotions, and you had the vinyl in the window multiple times over often, and it always looked very impressive. The ones that particularly stick in my head, this album, the Queen one, interesting, the live one, and Bomber by Motorhead are three that sort of springs to mind, but there's loads more. Another one was things like Breakfast in America as well. So yeah, this came out first, and that would be, has it got it on here? Oh, there we go, 1980 is the production of the date there. Now, in terms of this one, it's pretty sort of basic sleeve. It was funny when I dug this out for the first time. I'd forgotten that back in the day, these had a note on them about, thinking of giving someone a record as a gift. Why not give them a record token? So I think this should have, Eddie. So that was the style of the inner label. Sorry for the dustiness of this. This is probably the first time I've dug this album out in a long while. I've been very lucky in that I've managed to keep my original vinyl collection intact. I know over the years my wife sort of slowly sold hers off, and I think regrets it to some degree, but I managed to maintain mine. So yes, what do we learn on here? So lead vocals Paul Di'Anno, bass and vocals Steve Harris, guitar and vocals Dennis Stratton, guitar Dave Murray, drums Clive Burr, produced by Will Malone, this album. So prior to this, I suppose you'd have the Soundhouse tapes, and but for me, if you're thinking about what was my first exposure to Iron Maiden, well, it would have been listening to the Friday Rock Show on a Friday evening, not surprisingly. There used to be back then a Friday and a Saturday rock show that were actually presented by different DJs. Friday rock show was Tommy Vance, and I'm trying to remember who used to do the Saturday rock show at that point. I think it was Alan Freeman, probably. Yeah. And so, but I think I've probably recounted this story tons of times, but I'll do it again. So one fateful Friday evening in 79, December of 79, I don't have the exact date down in front of me, but I know what episode it was. So I came in from going down to the local social club after meeting up with friends, and I'd always sort of wander back around sort of, I don't know, 9, just before 9. and come back and sort of listen to the radio in the front room. My dad has a really nice radio cassette combination. No record player there, just radios and cassettes. And often I'd come back to listen to a couple of Queen tapes that I had. And what would happen is when I'd switch the unit on, it would always default to the radio, and it would always be tuned in to Radio 1, because we used to listen to the chart rundown on a Sunday night. I think it was a bit of a tradition in the house. So yeah, I switched that on, and when I switched it on, the Friday Rock Show came on, which I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to before, and they were doing like this rundown. They were a year old, and they were doing 10 tracks that people had written in for. So I listened to the whole thing, was hooked, particularly because they played Rainbow Rising by Rainbow, and that really hooked me in. And so the following week I started to listen to it, and at some point that Iron Maiden had done a session for the BBC, I think in November of '79, and I think I probably caught it on the repeat. I don't know if I caught it when it originally went out, but on the repeat. And I didn't go out and buy this album straight away. It was rather like when I went through the Def Leppard episode. So this, album-wise, was the album I bought when it came out, Iron Maiden Killers, and I played this to, not quite destruction, but you know what I mean, just over every time. And this came out in '81, and I've got slightly fuzzy memories of when this came out. I didn't deliberately with these videos don't look up much before I do this, so it's sort of quite off the cuff, and that way I only relate to personal stories. But this is being down as 1981, and I know I was still at school until about May, June. No, actually that's not right. It would be July, because I was going to stay on originally and I didn't. So yeah, I was around until term broke up for sort of summer break until middle of July in the UK. And so I've got a feeling this must have come out at some point, because I have this memory, and it could be slightly foggy, as memories do get jumbled up sometimes, of me coming in from school and just putting this on pretty much every day and sort of listening to it in the evenings over and over and over again. And even as I sit here, I can hear the tracks playing over in my head. Things like Ides of March, all of these, just because I kept playing it, flipping it, and then playing the next side, and over again. And by this point, Adrian Smith was in the band, who I was always impressed by his that's like it looks like what do they call them now? Yeah, it's Gibson Explorer shape, but I'm pretty sure it's not a Gibson. I might be wrong. Wasn't it another brand? It probably could be. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. For some reason I got it in my head that he played Hamer or Hammer guitars, however you say that, but that could well be Gibson. See, yeah, for some reason, and maybe I'm getting muddled up with, someone played a Destroyer as well. Was it an Ibanez? But I'm not 100% sure now. I'd have to look again. I'd have to look this up. But it was just that Explorer shaped. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if the Gibson Explorers had the binding on them. That's what's confusing me. But anyway, I've digressed. And at this point, Martin Headmaster Birch was producing the band. Yeah, so, and this is, out of the three, this is my favourite album. And then we get onto this, when Bruce Dickinson joined the band. Now, I was aware of Bruce Dickinson before this because I had bought the last Samson album he sung on, which would be, what's the one with Riding with the Angels on? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Is it Head Start? Yeah, anyway, it's the one with, I think, is it Samson Pushing Down the Pillars or something like that? Yeah, I just can't remember the name of the album. I've got a cassette of it somewhere. So this came out in '82. So yeah, I was aware of Bruce Dickinson. So he came in, replaced Paul Di'Anno. And for this one, yeah, we do have a bit of a nicer insert here. This was a popular thing. Often when I'd buy albums, you'd have this sort of photo reel. I remember buying the Accept album. That would be Breaker, I think it is, which had all sort of a montage of Polaroids in it. And I used to spend you spend like days going through and looking at all the intricacies of the photos. Particularly, I've gone off on a side tangent, but the Accept one, I'll have to dig out. Actually, I should do an episode on interesting record inserts. I didn't get this out actually, but yeah, it had this sort of trademark, but that is the center for that. And then on the flip side, it's one of these ones where, yeah, it's got that there. So during this period, and as I mentioned, I think in the episode on my singles collection, I was also buying, a few Iron Maiden singles as they came out, but that sort of fell off after a while. So what have we got on here? Invaders, Children of the Damned, The Prisoner, 22, Acacia Avenue, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, Gangland, Hallowed Be Thy Name. Yeah, so while when I was listening to this band in the house, other stuff that was getting listened to a lot would be Tigers of Pantang, which one of my brothers was big into. The other one was a big Judas Priest fan, so there's a lot of Judas Priest around this time playing in the house. So things like Point of Entry, and prior to that British Steel, I suppose, and then albums like Sin After Sin and Stained Class. Yeah, so there's a lot to retrospective buying. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So my sort of purchasing of Iron Maiden pretty much fell off after this, until I think I bought Power Slave, and then probably Live After Death at some point. But really, my sort of laser focused interest revolved around the first three albums and other stuff that was coming around that time. And in terms of order of buying this, as I think I mentioned, this was the album that I bought first, and then between this and Number of the Beast, I bought the first album. And as I said, this one was basically played the most. Now, I don't know if I got the record out. Let's just complete this and just so you can see, if you've not seen these, are pretty base there. But again, you've got this, and on the flip side of the same, you can see these sleeves are pretty old. These sleeves are pretty much as old. The plastic sleeves are pretty much as old as the. Pretty much, as old as the albums. So yeah, 81. They are antiques themselves, I suppose. But here's sort of filling in a few gaps. So, in the course of releasing those albums, they also released this, which was the Made in Japan EP. So this, when they recorded it, still had, where is it? So Paul Di'Anno was still in the band, and but yeah, Agent Smith. So it was basically from, I believe, the Killers tour. May May 23rd, 81. Okay, so that tells me, yeah. So this I would have, I don't know how close this came out to that date. But yeah, that gives me a little bit of a, chronologically, a bit of a better idea actually. And so this one, yeah, you can see a common denominator here. Yeah, so that's the Maiden Japan EP. And then at that time, there was one thing that I didn't have, amongst several things. As mentioned, I was buying the singles, but they released a non-album track, Women in Uniform. And so this was the first time ever I'd bought vinyl through the post. So you can see this is I think after the fact release. So there's some, you know, the original single, the 7-inch single. So this is the, you know, 45 RPM 12-inch. It's got Phantom of the Opera on side 2 and Women in Uniform and Invasion. This is Invasion, not Invaders. So 2 tracks with similar names. This on this one, Paul Di'Anno is on here, and I believe, I'm trying to think, at the time of Women in Uniform, I think the original guitarist was still in the band. Pretty sure about that when they recorded that. Yeah, so Dennis Stratton would have still been a member of the band. But what was fascinating to me at that time, and this is where I get onto this final rather nice artifact. I don't know, I might have gone through this before. Okay, so this thing. So this was bought a number of years later. So, you know, we've got, in terms of my timeline with the band, you know, we've got the first album coming out, then I listened to the Friday Rock Show sessions that they did, and then bought the second album when it came out, bought the third album when it came out. Between Killers and Number of the Beast, I bought that EP, that Made in Japan. And then at some point, by mail order, probably using a postal order, I think they were called back in the day, I bought that 12-inch single of Women in Uniform. But what really bugged me a little bit and piqued my interest was a couple of things. One is obviously there were those recordings from Friday Night Rock Show, but also a really interesting Reading recording with Paul Di'Anno still in the band. And it was prior, I think, to, yeah, it was definitely prior to Killers being released, but they sang the track Killers, or they did the track Killers at Reading, but it had different lyrics. And I remember listening to it on the Friday Rock Show. Actually played the set, I think, pretty much in its entirety. And for years, I was trying to track that down because my copy became mangled. And again, I thought maybe I hadn't heard it properly. I'm thinking, yeah, there's a version of Killers out there with different lyrics. And then many years later, and I'm not sure when this was released, 2002, so a long time after, this box came out, and in it, apart from the rather nice shot glass and this thing here, the ring and the limited edition scroll, was it 3 CDs? So there's a CD of B-sides, one of the Beast Over Hammersmith, and these, if you open them up, are double CDs. I think they're just, yeah, double CDs. And then this one, which was the thing I was after, so the BBC Archives, which has the original, you can see that session that was recorded on the 14th of November 1979 and was played several times. Like I said, I may have heard the repeat because it was so popular. And then this, so 28th of August 1982, we have Reading Festival, but on disc 2 we have the 1980 Reading Festival, so 23rd of August 1980. Yeah, and there's a version of Killers on here. Oh, you can see that, how clear that is, which has different lyrics on it. So yeah, so that was pretty cool. And so that would have been when Paul Di'Anno was still in the band. This would have been, so this was Paul Di'Anno era, with Dennis Stratton. This one, still Paul Di'Anno. I'm unsure in August 80 whether he joined the band yet or not, whether Dennis Stratton was in the band or not still, but anyway, yeah, so still Paul Di'Anno era. And then these two are Bruce Dickinson, so one from, as I said, 82, the Reading Festival, from a couple of years later, and then one from Monsters of Rock 1988. But the good thing with this, like I said, is the bit, you know, the first bit of disc 1, first bit of disc 2 was stuff that at some point I had on cassette that had long been mangled and I just wanted to get hold of. So that, when that finally came out, that's, you know, effectively confirmed my memory of hearing Killers being played live from that broadcast with different lyrics. So there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was fun to make and think about. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in a future episode.